Welcome back to some more Corpse Body Blood Drive. Anyway, let's play. Chapter 1. Returning? A day had passed since the event at Shimmerenjaku South Apartments. This was to be a significant turning point for me, and Mashida might have been a part of it from the start, except the fate seemed to have other plans for him.
先生、俺、今日は大事な用があって。
ダメ。サトシ君、昨日の唾液の小テスト、ちょっと残念な点数だったでしょ?
Like an owner training a puppy, Koan gave him a strong glare and held up her index finger in reprimand.
今から1時間、私の授業に集中しなさい。そうしたら、次の小テストも解けるようになるから。
先生って英語科でしょ？唾液なんて専門外じゃ。
一生懸命教えるからできるよ。
She seemed a little taken aback by the remark, puffing up her cheeks like a chipmunk in a protest.
いや、先生、クオン先生ってユイ先生そっくりだな。ごめんなさい。
Looking both bemused and guilty, Mashida tried to get up and leave his seat in a swift motion, but he was quickly and easily caught, lifted up, and forcefully sat back down.
ダメ。
Miss Kuon was smiling. She was actually enjoying this.
なんだこの先生。
Miss Kuon was only the slightest bit taller than Mashida. This did make her taller than the average, but her arms were small and frail. There seemed to be no way she could possibly have lifted someone of his build. This whole situation was rather bewildering for him, and he made no attempt to hide his confusion.
さあ、始めるよ。
はい。
He had no other option. Apparently, he was going to study algebra for the next hour, come hell or high water. Meanwhile, at the local cafe near the school, Kashinuma, hopefully I said that correctly, and I were sitting down to speak to Aiko Niwa, the informant who'd led my friends to me the previous night.
大丈夫？お腹でも痛いの？
I responded with a dismissive gesture while continuing to rub my abdomen with my other hand. Ever since the previous night, I had this constant, unbearable urge to pee.
なんだろう。昨日怖い思いして過呼吸が続いたから、体がおかしいのかな。ずっと膀胱が膨らんでる気がする。何から話そうかしら。
I mean, she did pee blood though, so... Aiko tilted her head and stared at me, looking me up and down, seemingly judging my every mannerism, my every movement. It was making me feel really self-conscious. I covered my abdomen with both hands, as I guarding it from her gaze.
昨日はありがとうございました。
いいえ、大したことはしていないわ。如月学園って案外広いのね。岸沼くんたちを探すのに少し手間取ってしまったわ。
Kishinuma and I stared at one another, still unsure how to feel about this strange new addition to our encourage?
あゆみちゃん、岸沼くん。あなたたちって天神小学校の生還者よね。
We'd pledged never to discuss heavenly hosts with anyone else, which we'd always assumed would be an easy promise to keep. But now, casually and out of the blue, here we were.
なんであんたそのことを。
あなたたち死後の世界に接してきたでしょう。通常人間には身につかないオーラの色をしているわ。私には見えるの。
Both Kishinuma and I were speechless. I just sat there staring at my palm, consciously trying to see my aura. I guess Aiko was smiling at us triumphantly.
愛子さんは霊能関係の情報屋でナホさんのお友達なんですよね。
ええ、ナホちゃんに天神小学校の情報を提供したのは私。
The true source of the deaths and subsequent erasures that had turned our lives into a living nightmare was the Sachiko Ever After ritual posted on Neo's occult blog. I'd been a fan of Neo's for quite some time, so when I saw that, I knew I had to try it out with my friends from class 29. And as a result, half of those friends were now gone.
ナホちゃんがキビキ先生のために霊能探偵をやっていたことは知っているわよね。
はい。幸せの幸子さんの情報が掲載されてから失踪されたことも。
私はね、心霊スポットや霊能関係の情報を集めて、それを欲しがる人に有償で提供してきた。報酬はお金、もしくは私の興味をそそる霊具の類。相手によってふっかけ方も変えるけれど。まあ、ギブアンドテイクよね。向こうは情報が欲しい。私はお金と霊具が欲しい。
Physically, Aiko was a very attractive young lady, but personally wise, the jury was still out. Her words were calculated and emotionless. Her true intentions, a mystery.
だから私は情報屋をやっているの。ナホちゃんもいいお客さんだったわ。あの子が最後に買ったのが天神小学校の情報。ナホちゃん、これでキビキ先生の小説がなんとか賞を取れるってすごくはしゃいでた。ねえ、教えてくれる？あなたたちの閉じ込められたあの異空間にナホちゃんはいた？
ナホさんはキビキ先生と一緒に亡くなっていました。
I looked down as I answered, despite everything she'd done. The memory of Neo's passing was still painful for me. She'd become one of the heavenly host's lost souls and gone completely berserk. In the end, I was the one who finished her off.
そう、やっぱりね。
Eiko seemed completely unaffected by this revelation. Her tone remained even and her expression cold and distant. Honestly, I'd had about enough of her by this point. She was so devoid of empathy. I was almost offensive. I was generally starting to get pissed off.
平気なんですか？
残念だと思うわ。でも予想はついていたからわざわざ取り乱す必要もないでしょ。
Kishinuma continued to stare intently at Aiko with his own brand of cold, emotionless eyes. He was oddly quiet, though his anger was palpable. I clenched my fists.
じゃ、この子は おまじないを一緒に行ったと思うんだけど、あっちにはいたかしら。
Aiko showed a picture or a photo of a girl named Sayaka Uyu. What?
いえ、会ってないからわかりません。
そう。
Aiko's expression was so unfaltering, you could carve it in a stone. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to say something.
ナオさんのことお客さんだなんて、そんなの友達って言わないと思います。
My voice was breaking with rage. But even if that hadn't been the case, my face must have read like a book. My icy bitch may have had only one expression, but I sure didn't.
あら、あなたは客って言葉に対して随分と偏見を持っているのね。取引を行う以上、私はそこに最大の誠意とクオリティを提供する。つまりそれがパートナーとしての信用で、フレンドシップにも負けないものだと思っているけれど。
You know, I would love her as a customer. She gave the utmost highest quality.
そんなこと。
I had no idea what to say. It seemed like Aiko was used to this sort of thing. Her response felt carefully rephrased, like a sales pitch. Finally, Kashinuma broke his
あ
silence.
んたよ、昨日篠崎を助けてくれたことは感謝するけどよ、金やなんかの見返りのためにそんなろくでもない情報を拡散させるなんて旗迷惑だと思わねえのか。
情報は情報よ。それ自体に罪はないわ。道具と同じ。それをどう使うかは使い手の問題でしょ。その気になれば、その辺にあるコップでも人は殺せてしまうのよ。
You know? A cop can kill a man just as easily as a knife. Not true. A cop you'll have to hit 17 times, where with a knife you could hit once. That's not true. It depends on the force and where the knife is.
なもん、詭弁じゃねえかよ。
Thank you.
あなたもそう思う？あゆみちゃん。
愛子さん、ごめんなさい。私はあなたの考え方嫌いです。無責任だと思います。
Her expression remained calm and collected overall, but her eyes blinked several times in rapid succession. It was the first outward sign of emotion we'd seen from her.
やれやれ、ひどい嫌われよね。慣れてるけど悲しいわ。
I can't say this is a new unexpected, but it never ceased to be disheartening. Aiko quickly shrugged off her sudden outburst and was back to her usual icy self.
まあ、天神症は俺らがぶっ壊してきたからいいけどよ。
An awkward tension filled the room, or at least our table.
じゃ、本題に入りましょうか。私があなたたちに近づいた理由、伝えたいことについて。
Let's get down to business. Aiko produced a thick, hard-bound file folder. That's a lot of F's, dude. A thick, hard-bound file folder from the light blue bag she brought with her. She opened to reveal several documents of a questionable nature. Among them were what looked like a family tree, as well as numerous pages featuring black magic symbology, or images that looked like a tree branches.
黒魔術の文字対応表。篠崎家の家系図。
少しショッキングなことを伝えるわね。
Aiko was looking directly into her eyes now. Her gaze was fixed, intensely, and unblinking.
さっき岸沼くんが言ったことだけれど間違いよ。
あ？何がだよ。
天神小学校は壊れてなどいない。今もまだ存在し続けているのよ。
What?
これを見て。
Aiko placed a black and white photo on the table. It wasn't the clearest of pictures, but there was no doubt in the location it depicted was Heavenly Host Elementary. In the picture, a small girl could be seen standing in those all too familiar hallways, holding a hatchet in her right hand.
天神小学校。
なんだよこれ。
やっぱりこれは私が念写したものよ。力が足りなくて少し不鮮明ではあるけれど、今現在のあの空間、天神小学校の様子。
一体どういうことなんですか？
I can't even describe what was going through my head at that moment. At that moment, I knew. I felt like I was about to burst. Aiko, however, remained calm as ever while recounting her story.
順を追って説明するわね。まず、昨日の例の赤い箱だけれど、開けると、このレーグが出てきたの。
The box I found on Makina's futon. Inside it were apparently two stones resembling magatama, comma-shaped ceremonial objects from Japanese antiquity. Also included in the box were several more roughly hewn stones, as well as a lining along the edges, consisting of crumpled pieces of thin white paper.
残念ながら箱の中でほとんど割れていたけれど、この一組は無事だったわ。
They looked almost like the demented version of yin and yang symbols, puzzle pieces that were clearly built to be slotted together. Aiko now held one stone in each hand, was mentioning them towards one another as if to drive that point home.
レーグというのはね、簡単に言えば死者の思いが込められたもののことで、物に閉じ込められた霊、またはその生前の記憶が持つ者に永遠と泣き言を語りかけてくる愉快なものよ。私はこう見えて無類のレーグコレクターでもあるの。
Kishinuma and I briefly locked eyes again. We shared the same look of bewilderment. Aiko's personality was much more twisted than either of us had initially perceived it to be.
この子の意志を読もうとするとね、呪わしい声と一緒におさげの少女や廃校の風景が見えてきたのよ。で、気になったからこのカメラに。
At this, she produced an old instant camera and placed it on the table in front of us.
私の念を映してみたの。それがその写真。私がこのレーグを使ってその時の今現在を念写したものよ。過去や未来の時間を超えた念写は私にはできないから。
I examined the photograph in greater detail, and a chill ran down my spine. There was absolutely no denying what it depicted. I was actually shaking.
篠崎幸子を失ったあの学校は私たちが逆落ちで脱出した際に崩壊したはず。
でも寸前のところでとどまったってところかしら。私に語りかけてくる声の主がまだいるのかもね。
Echo motioned forward, the photo in my hand.
例えば写真の女の子とか。誰かしらね、この子。
The answer was beginning to dawn on me. A sudden cold sensation exploded through my body, and I shuddered, as if trying to shake off the encroaching realization.
くそ、あの地獄みたいな場所がまだ存在してるってのかよ。
Kishi Numa leaned forward. The conversation was clearly beginning to engage him a lot more than it had been.
その天神小学校、いえ、学校の形をしたあの異空間だけれど、ナホちゃんに紹介した手前、私も気になって調べていたの。あの異空間の正体はね、涅槃という死後の世界に近い磁場なのよ。
Another world, or hereafter, an otherworldly plane of
普
death.
通はこの世とは別の次元に存在するものなのだけれど。
涅槃？
ええ、篠崎義恵については知っているわよね。
はい。
篠崎の家、義恵の診療所に黒の本と呼ばれる魔導書、ブック・オブ・シャドウズがあったことも。
はい。
Why? How could she know about that? A million thoughts, a million questions were running through my head. I was speechless. All I could do was sit there and hear her out. It was like a muffled scream or a moan of agony. The sound you make when you want to make a sound, but you're barely able to. That one was a little more forceful, accompanied by thrashing. It caused the nearby table light to fall over and roll along the ground.
あなた、落ち着いて、お願い。
This was Yoshi Shinozaki's clinic. And Yoshi herself was on top of her husband, holding him down with both her hands. She continued her Shinto purification chant. To prevent Seiji from biting off his own tongue, he had been gagged with a towel. Needless to say, he wasn't looking particularly well. Not far from where this was occurring, Sachiko stood aghast, trembling as she watched the proceedings with hesitant, sidelong glances.
かけまくも賢きイザナギの狼、つくしの卑弥呼の立花の元の淡木原にみそぎ払えたまいしときにありませる原江戸の狼たち。
Maybe I should read that fast. Huh? As Seiji, still collapsed on the floor, was clearly suffering. His body was bent into a most unnatural shape, and he was fervently clawing at his neck.
もろもろの漫画ごと積み汚れあらもば払い玉へ清めたまえと回すことのよしをまず神国す神八百万の神たちともに聞こしめせとかしこみも回す。
Goodness, dude. Sachiko's father screamed through his gag, foaming, beginning to forth out of its edges. He was going into cyanosis. Ghostly images of Shinozaki woman from ages past smiled down upon the event from the ceiling, laughing and mocking his suffering. Worse still, some of the women had traditionally blackened teeth, giving their smiles an unintentionally sinister edge. The atmosphere within the room was heavy, as if spirits occupied every empty corner, dancing and flitting about freely and joyously. Seiji's body sharply bent and began convulsing.
荒れませる腹井戸の狼たち。あなたしっかり。三親の御霊様、お願いです。連れて行かないでください。
A great-grandmother, Sarah, the head of the Shinozaki family, was among the black-teethed women laughing joyously at Seiji's suffering.
お父さん。
He did. His voice began to weaken, and his convulsions began to lose strength. Finally, the last spark of life had left his body. His eyes rolled back into his head, and all movement ceased. Sachiko looked up, eyes glazing over with tears. Yoshi, too, was stricken with grief and despair.
霊能力者の血筋、篠崎の者と結婚した夫は必ず早々の死を遂げる。呪われた家の運命に抗えなかった義恵は、心ない者たちから守るよう篠崎の家に託されていた禁忌の本に手をつける。それが黒の本、ブック・オブ・シャドウズ。
Book of Shadows.
愛する者を失う、そのことを恐れるあまり黒魔術に頼ったの。まさに荒唐無稽でバカな話よね。義恵自身もすがれるものなら何でもいい程度にしか思っていなかったと思うわ。
Aiko stared deeply into my eyes, seemingly fishing for a reaction to her tale.
ところが、まさか信じられないことが起こる。
I continued listening, unknowingly stroking the wound on my thigh, as unpleasant memories of my own foolish run-in with black magic resurfaced.
義恵の体に流れる篠崎の血筋、その強い霊力に想像もつかない何かが呼応してしまった。それは
I instantly knew what she was going to say.
義恵の術で本の中から呼び覚まされた何か。それは涅槃。未来永劫、死者と共にいられる場所、死後の世界を切り取った空間がこの世に生まれてしまったの。義恵はもう半分正気を失っていたのね。一人娘の幸子を現世に残して、自分は夫の魂と共に生涯をそこで添い遂げようとした。ランド・オブ・コープス。ところが涅槃には意志があり、義恵の手でコントロールできるものではなかったの。
I knew that all too well, just like Yoshi, I'd experienced my own tragic failure with black magic at the Shinozaki clinic.
黒魔術には障害反動がある。夫の魂はバラバラに飛散し、義恵の命も消えかけた。自分の愚かな行為を悔やみながら呼吸を止めようとしたその時、底なしに霊能力の強い一人娘幸子が涅槃を丸ごと体の中に飲み込んだの。
幸子が。
The poor girl collapsed to the floor, violently thrashing about as the weight of an entire dimension crushed her from the inside. As action had saved her mother's life, certainly, but death wouldn't surely been preferable. Picking herself up, Yoshi rushed to her daughter's side in tears.
幸子、さっちゃん、あなた。お母さん死なないで、お母さん。
Both parent and child were bowling, pain mixing with relief, mixing with pain again. The little girl buried her face into Yoshi's bosom and just cried and cried. Yoshi grasped her tightly in both arms, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. By this point, Sachiko's body had begun producing a dark blue aura.
ごめんね、さっちゃん。ごめんね。お母さん間違ってた。お母さんにはあなたがいるわ。もうあなたを置いていこうだなんて思わないから。
あなたも知っての通り、幸子も篠崎家当主直系の血を引くサラブレッド。義恵を超えるほどの霊能力を持っていたのね。涅槃を丸ごと体内に封じ込めるなんてものすごいことよ。
Eiko took a big, nosy sip from her coffee mug.
当時ほとんど最強の霊能者だったんじゃないかしら。まだほんの小さな子供だったけれど。
でもその幸子が死んでしまって。
そう、保健医義恵の転落事故と同時に幸子が行方不明になった50年前のあの事件。
あれは校長による殺人事件でした。
やはりそうなのね。校長が余計なことをしでかしたおかげで幸子の中に吸い込まれて封印されていた涅槃が復活し、あの異空間天神小学校が生まれてしまったのよ。
It's probably because the school was the site of Sachiko's violent demise that her nirvana took on its form.
とはいえ復活した涅槃も資料として蘇った幸子の力で再び抑制されて、やっぱりその支配下に置かれていたようだけれど。
幸子がいろんな力を使えたのもその涅槃の影響だったのかしら。
This was all starting to make a sick sort of sense. The pieces were falling into place and painting an absolute awful picture. I shrugged to myself as I considered it.
現在はあなたたちが脱出の際に幸子を取り除いてしまったから、涅槃は再び暴走状態になっているのよ。
なくなってしまえばよかったのに、あんな危険な場所。
This entire conversation was a roller coaster of emotions for me. At this point, I was just angry at everyone involved in this whole ordeal, myself included.
さて、ここで少し突飛な話をするわよ。ついてきてね。
はい。
死んだ友達にまた会いたい？
That certainly got our attention. We both perked out our heads immediately.
涅槃で死んだ霊は成仏できずに囚われ続けるというわ。お友達の魂だってまだあそこにいるかもしれない。実はね、黒の本ブックオブシャドウズにはいろんな魔術が書かれているの。ヨシエの使った涅槃を生み出す術の他にも反言の術というものもある。
Nakashima and I knew about that one all too well.
命を無理やり戻すなんて敬虔な宗教家に言わせれば神のおぼし飯に背く背徳の行為だと言われそうだけれどね。
So you can revive someone in there, like in the elementary school, but they can't come back here since they're dead technically.
は
Kishinuma seemed a bit more confused than he probably should have been, though I suspect the look on his face may have had something to do with that. I performed that spell, the very one Aiko was describing. It took hours, failed miserably, and killed my sister. All at once, the guild returned. I lowered my head, solemnly. Aiko grinned at me, and I had this sinking suspicion it was because she somehow knew that what I was thinking, though I couldn't be sure, and I certainly didn't know how she would.
けれどそんなものはクソくらいよね。冒涜も破壊も何でも来いよ。死んだ友達を生き返らせたいんでしょ。だったらあの本を探し出し天神小学校でもう一度あの術を行えば成功する可能性は飛躍的に上がるんじゃないかしら。
おいあんた、何無責任なこと言ってやがんだ。またやばいことになったらどうすん。
I didn't exactly mean to interrupt Kishinuma, but quite honestly, I didn't even realize he was talking. I was too confused on what Aiko had just said.
あなたは知っているんですね。私と中島さんの吉江の家での失敗を。
Aiko tilted her head at me, that same very smile creeping across her face. She'd gone from cold and emotionless to knowing and expressive in a mere instant.
あの時のことは夢幻だったと思っています。ありえないものを見て、ありえない体験をして、私はおかしくなっていたって。してはいけないこと。あんなこと、もう忘れたいの。
でも現実だった。
Aiko pointed to the scar on my neck, then went to step further and slightly bruised it with her hand. I could feel that touch deep within my soul. I suddenly found myself swallowing my next breath, practically choking on thin air.
いい？人が本来触れることすらできない世の常識の裏側にあなたは手を突っ込んだのよ。今さら逃げられると思う？
I looked down again, trying my best to avoid Aiko's gaze.
私にそんなことが。
When had I started crying, I realized my head again, intent upon looking deep into Aiko's eyes as she answered my question, but she looked so blurry through my tears. I could tell though that she was smiling at me. It was that same expression, her new standard.
そんなことって何？
みんなを。
うんうん。何？あなたの口からちゃんと聞きたいな。どうしたいの？
生き帰らせ。
よく言えました。
She's singing it. Aiko patted my head, as one might a dog's after a successful performed trick.
黒の本が生み出すのは魔女の英知が起こす奇跡よ。それは運命をもねじ曲げる力。たとえそれが確定した運命であろうともね。あなたは強力な霊能者の家系篠崎家の末裔。日野江さんがいない今、これはあなたにしかできないことかもしれない。
My confidence was being bolstered by the minute, though in retrospect, that was likely Aiko's aim. Nonetheless, if there were still something I can do for my friends.
だけど肝心のブックオブシャドウズがどこに行ったのかもわからないし、それに
幸子を失った天神賞には幸せの幸子さんのおまじないではもういけない。
そうだと思います。あの学校で菅野由紀ちゃんという女の子に聞きました。
Aiko once again placed the bluish white Magatama stones from the box in either hand, this time fitting them together, though not quite the way they were supposed to interlock.
そこでこれよ。
それは一体。
ものすごい霊力を持ってる。さすが篠崎の霊具ね。声が教えてくれたわ。これは幸せの石。
幸せの石。
I leaned forward despite myself. The name sent a shiver down my spine. But now that I heard it, I had to know more.
この石は2つで1つなの。これをパズルのようにくっつけて、涅槃よ、死人を迎えよと唱えれば、触れている者みんながいつでも天神小学校へ飛べるわ。
We both flinched at her chant, but Aiko just smiled. She must have intentionally oriented the stones to the wrong way, so the charm wouldn't activate.
戻る時も同じ。
She tossed the stones she'd be holding in her right hand into her left, where it clacked together with the other.
不思議でしょ？この子が教えてくれたのよ、この方法。
Aiko glazed longingly at the stones. She was clearly utterly enamored by them. It seemed as if they were the key factors in unleashing her newfound emotional expressiveness. Might as well just read everything in this game. Like, we play a read game here. But my focus was elsewhere. Without a doubt, the items Aiko now held in her left hand were extraordinarily dangerous, possibly the most dangerous horrific objects in the entire world. However, while Aiko was ogling them with her left hand, her right was fleeing around for something in her breast pocket. Can I see it? She slowly removed it, producing an old black and white photograph. When had she taken that? It was the same photograph I'd seen at the Makina Shinozaki's house the previous night. It depicted a young Yoshi alongside her mother and Makina.
10代だった篠崎義恵は、おばのマキナのことを慕って、よく家に遊びに行っていたそうよ。 世界的に有名な霊能師の家系である篠崎家、ここならと。ヤゴーラ教会の生き残り、ヤゴーラのオキナが危険だからとマルトゥバから盗み出してきたブック・オブ・シャドウズを預けに来たんだけれど、それが揃うと危ないからと、石はマキナが、本はヨシエが預かって保管することに決めたそうよ。
Yagora Society, Martubas. I'd never heard these terms before at all. And then there was that damned Book of Shadows again. Why did that have to keep coming up?
あなたたちはあの学校から篠崎幸子を取り除いた。それによって大きな可能性が広がったわ。これまでのような一方通行ではなく、現世に戻ってくることができる。この世のものではない異空間心霊スポットが生まれているの。
She thrust the afterlife stones towards me triumphantly and continued to make her pitch, growing more excited by the second. I was legitimately speechless. What could I say?
わかるかしら。まさにあの場所は宝の山よ。これまで眉唾、嘘800と笑われていた霊魂の世界への扉が開いたの。世界中のオカルト研究が一気に加速するわ。私はね、商売としてあの空間へ人を連れて行くツアーコンダクターをやろうと思うの。
Bringing people on the tour if she makes extra cash? That's crazy. Kashinuma and I both reacted to this preposterous suggestion with a start. She couldn't possibly be serious, could she?
ナホちゃんのブログからは片白のデータは削除したし、あの手段ではもう飛べない。行く方法は私しか持っていない。
What could she possibly have been thinking? I wanted to stop her at once. I wanted to take those stones and break them right there, on the spot, before anyone else got hurt. But I...
私はね、ツアーを運営するにあたって安全を確保したいの。あゆみちゃんはお友達の霊を探したいでしょ？だったらあの空間の再調査は共通の目的にならないかしら。
Aiko leaned in as she spoke, her breath scented with the sugary sweetness of the extravagant dessert we'd been eating. Tickled my nose.
ね、あゆみちゃん。私と一緒にもう一度天神小学校に行ってくれない？本来は片白を引きちぎる方法でツアーをやろうと思っていたんだけど、こんな便利なアイテムが見つかっちゃったんだもの。これはもう運命よ。私やるわ。商売にする。
Aiko seemed like she was on top of the world, but that just made me all the more disgusted with her.
どうかしら。
On the other hand, she was offering me a chance to save our lost friends, and however remote that chance may have been, it staked the odds frustratingly, there we go, in her favor. I still couldn't just say yes, but I also couldn't just say no. Honestly, I resented Aiko for putting me in this position. I glared at her for a moment before I said anything.
すぐに答えを出せるわけがないでしょ。考えさせてください。
I'd almost forgotten Koshinuma was there. Sudden waves of guilt washed over me. He had an absolutely incredulous look on his face. I couldn't bear to see it, so I looked away.
ブックオブシャドウズだってどこにあるかわからないし、 そもそもその石だって本当にそんな力があるかもわからないじゃないですか。実際に試したわけじゃないのでしょ。
Eiko smiled. She oriented the two stones so they'd form a perfect yin-yang symbol, then slotted them together once again. Immediately, the stones began glowing with a bluish white hue, and a stream of energy started to form around her.
マジかよ。
Eiko continued smiling and looked directly into my eyes.
いいわ、ゆっくり考えて。この石はもちろんまだ試していないからどれだけ危険かわからないしね。
As she slowly separated the two stones as she said this, and the energy surroundings her dissipated.
篠崎家の血筋、篠崎牧名の家で発見されたんだもの。きっと信憑性も霊言も新たかな霊具に違いないわ。
すげえな。ちょっと見せてくれよ。
Kishinuma didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed the afterlife stones from Eiko's hands and began examining them carefully.
あの箱の中にこんなものが入ってたとはな。あんたさ、まさかこの石を独り占めしようなんて考えてねえよな。
Eiko seemed taken aback by the question. Way to go, Kashinuma. You managed to catch her off guard.
これを見つけられたのは半分は篠崎が体張ったおかげなんだろ。
Eiko seemed to ponder these words for a moment.
じゃあ、お互い勝手に行けないように一つずつ持っていましょうか。
わかりました。ちょうだい、岸沼くん。
おう。
Kishinuma plopped one of the stones in my hand and then slipped the other back to the drawstring pouch Eiko had brought them in a closed it up.
うん。
He then casually handed the pouch back to his rightful owner.
その気になったら連絡をちょうだい。そうね。サービスとしてブックオブシャドウズの捜索は私も手伝ってあげるわ。無料でね。
Eiko flashed us the biggest, most generous smile I think I've ever seen.
あの本さえ見つかれば一緒に行ってくれるのよね、あゆみちゃん。
I closed my eyes and gave something like a half-hearted half nod, lowering my head without raising it again. It was interpreted as a yes, but I'm not sure I meant it that way.
ぐっと。じゃあ、ここは私が出しておくわね。
Eiko got up and grabbed the check.
いいえ、私も出します。
I took out my wallet and I had no desire to owe this person anything. Eiko just smiled.
それじゃ割り勘ってことで。そうそう。これは私からのプレゼント。
Eiko handed her a photograph to me.
嫌だわ。そんなに構えないで。これは無料で差し上げるわ。だから安心して。
最低だよ、あの人。
ああ。
鈴本さんや篠原さん、森重くん、ゆい先生、みんなのことが終わったらこの石はすぐに壊すから。
おう。その意見には俺も同感だ。両方ともぶっ壊す案だがな。
What am I reading after? As if he'd been waiting for this cue, Kashinuma pulled the other stone from his pocket.
岸沼くん。
あの学校のヤバさも知らねえで浮かれてやがったからな。こっそりいただいてきたぜ。
岸沼くん、すごい。悪い人。
What the heck, bro? Why is she smiling about this? I would be like, dude, we have to go with her. She wants to go so badly. Take her with.
緊急事態によりやむなしだ。けどよ、篠崎。こう言っちゃなんだが、生き返らせるとか鈴本たちのことはもう考えない方がいいんじゃないか。無茶ばっかしてお前がまた死ぬ思いするとかよ。鈴本も結衣先生も篠原も森重もみんなよ、そんなこと望んでねえと思うんだ。
でもそうじゃないかもしれない。
いい加減にしろ、篠崎。サトシや中島がどんだけお前のこと心配してると思ってんだ。
ごめんなさい。でもお願い、岸沼くん、もう少しだけでいいから私の気の済むまでやらせて。お願い。
行くよ。いいか、一人じゃダメだぞ。こっちは俺が預かっとくからな。大丈夫だ。
I turned my gaze up to meet Kashinuma's eyes. My eyes must have looked like saucers. Windows into a mind full of worries, ideas and fears spurred by the unexpected turn of
なん
events.
かあったらすぐ連絡しろよ。前みたいに目つぶって突っ走って勝手に死にそうになってんじゃねえぞ。俺だってお前一人くらい守れる自信はあんだからよ。
Kashinuma patted me on the head reassuringly as he said this, and I had no idea how to react. I felt warm and safe, but also a little annoyed, much like a younger sister being simultaneously comforted and scolded by her bigger brother. All I could say his response was, I could feel my eyes still bulging from my head, opened as far as my eyelids would allow. I imagined how I must have appeared to Kishinuma, and was momentarily embarrassed.
あんじゃ、そろそろ帰るとするか。
He's late. Seriously, what was he thinking? Boy needs a boot to the head, I swear. Ready to head home? Come on, let's go.
ただいま。
おかえり。
今日の変死速報です。死亡した岡部さんは背骨が折れた状態で都内のこの場所で発見され、
A Tokyo map was displayed on the television screen, marked with 2 red dots. The marquee at the bottom provided the headline, Sudden violent deaths remain unexplained.
ご飯はまだ少し時間かかるから先にお風呂に入りなさい、あゆみ。
うん。
Why is my socks just laying on the floor now? Without thinking, I'd left the socks I just removed from my feet in the living room floor and began walking towards the bathroom.
これ靴下。
Good sister. This was a bad habit of mine. I ingrained within me that it had almost become a ritual. Mom did well to have caught it so quickly. I grabbed my socks and left the room.
みんなの魂がいる天神症でブックオブシャドウズを使えば今度こそ生き返らせることができるかもしれない。
I'm pretty sure you can. I set my bag down in my room and quickly automatically grabbed my sweatpants and spats and made a beeline for the bathroom. You guys, I don't know how long this is until we can save, but it's just a read fest. We can actually end this episode here, guys. Hopefully that enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.